Hey everyone, welcome back to Garnock Reviews, where today I'm back at the Lamb Yacht Center working with Hansen Yachts near Ortega River in Jacksonville, Florida. This time I'm checking out Mike's latest listing, where he's got a 1994 Nordlund 65 Pilothouse Motor Yacht for sale. At the time of shooting this video, she was up for sale for $395,000. She's a custom built yacht that was built by Nordlund Boat Company in Tacoma, Washington. She has spent most of her life in the northeast US, with all sorts of history and documentation to go with it, and she recently made her way under her own power down to Jacksonville, Florida. This one's been priced far below what you would expect to pay for the market value, and that's because although mechanically and structurally she is a sound yacht, this one could benefit from an interior refit. She measures in at 65 foot in length with a beam at 18 feet, and then she's got a draft of 4 feet. And the dry weight is 80,000 pounds. This is a very serious and capable luxury yacht. You can cruise at various speeds. At 7 knots you're doing 900 RPM, 13 knots is 1600 RPM, and wide open throttle is 21 knots. The aft cockpit is a clear open space. That way you can have plenty of people socialising together, but you can also bring out freestanding furniture. This entire area can be closed off. It's got the canopies all rolled up. But between the extended overhang from the Flybridge and those wraparound canopy covers, you can definitely make this fully enclosed to avoid all the weather and the elements. The transom got what I would refer to as a European style with the wraparound steps. This makes it easy if you ever wanted to board a tender or if you wanted to back up to a pontoon. But what I was surprised to find is this one has been equipped with a windlass and anchor on the transom. So she is designed for having a kedge anchor, and that hatch leads straight into the engine room, which I'll show you later on in the video. You got a solid handhold to hold on to as you climb those steps. And then from this angle you can see just how spacious the aft cockpit is, with an abundance of storage compartments and lockers, and they all have the doors and hatches lock into place, that way nothing pops open while the boat's underway. And as an example, if I open this one on the port side, you'd see this is a perfect place for storing ropes and fenders. And then to make your way into the accommodation, it's got sliding glass doors, and I really like the fact that these doors actually lock into place in several steps of the opening, so that way you don't need to worry about the doors sliding as the boat's underway. And you can have the doors open and have a mesh screen door close over, and that way you don't need to worry about bugs getting in, but you can still have that fresh air. And as you step inside, I couldn't believe how much space is in this yacht. That full beam really takes effect. There's also great headroom throughout, and those large windows certainly help. And while there's no sign of any damage, leaks or anything like that, the biggest complaint with this yacht is all the vinyl that you see in the walls and ceiling. It's basically sagging and needs either repaired or it may need to get replaced. And for the saloon they use household style sofas, and that was done on purpose. That way you can move the sofas to the side. It's not fixed in place if you wanted to have large gatherings, but it also makes it very easy if you wanted to upgrade these as well. And to starboard we've got an entertainment console. All the cabinets that you see throughout the yacht, they've all got the push button lock mechanism. But in here we also have controls for the pop-up TV. And I like the fact that the TV is actually secured to the frame of the woodwork. And that way you don't need to worry about the TV moving, both when it's getting raised and lowered, and also whenever the boat's underway. And then as we make our way forward, you're going to find that we've got the galley on the port side, and we've got a dining area to starboard. I like the fact that the galley is open plan. You don't get that hemmed in claustrophobic feeling when you're standing here, but it also lets you communicate with all your friends and family that's on board. And this galley's got a ton of storage, so that way you don't need to worry about all your pots, pans and utensils. Tremendous amount of countertop space for preparing all your favourite meals. You got a 2-burner stovetop on the left hand side, and then you got an electric grill on the right. You got a full size oven down below, and then mounted up overhead you got a good sized convection microwave oven. And having as much countertop space, you get plenty of room if you ever wanted to have your George Foreman, your air fryers or similar. And as we continue to pan round, you'll see this one's got the full size fridge freezer, with the freezer on the left and the fridge on the right. And this fridge freezer's actually got pins that drop down on the top of the door to secure the doors in place, which I thought was a great setup, because there's not a lot of boats have the ability to lock the fridge freezer doors. So it's just an extra safeguard in place. And up overhead, again we get more storage up here as well. As you'll see throughout the entire yacht, anytime that you can fit in a drawer, cabinet or locker, they've done it. And to starboard we got a big U-shaped dining area. I'm going to guess you could get at least 6 adults here in comfort. And being a yacht designed for the northeast, you'll see that it's got heaters throughout. And this one boasts a lot of really impressive accent lighting. It doesn't really show up as well just because it's during the day, but I'd imagine this one's got an impressive setup for night time. Then moving forward, we get the large pilot house. I love how much visibility is in here, how much headroom's in here. And this bench seating's great for your friends and family to be with you, but this would also double up as a great watch berth if you're doing passage making. We've got deck access on both port and starboard side, and we've got a very detailed breaker panel here. And to the best of my knowledge, all the electronics on board is operational and functional. This yacht did just make its passage down from the northeast recently, but if you ever wanted to upgrade to modern electronics, it would be so easy to do on this yacht because you've got full access not only for storage in here, but for all the wiring behind the console. So we do have the plotter, we've got the radar, we've got the autopilot, rudder angle indicator, there's a VHF, depth gauge. There's an abundance of monitoring and alarms, it's all tracked up here. You've got full engine instrumentation. And again, if you wanted to add extra electronics and upgrades, there's plenty of room in the bulkhead that you could put stuff up here as well. And over on the starboard side is basically a navigation station. It's a perfect spot for laying out your charts and plotting your course. But this is a custom built yacht and there is a ton of drawings that come with this boat. So if you do want to undertake any major refit, half the barrel's already done for you. A good naval architect or a shipyard would be able to pick these up and give you an idea of what's all involved. And you'll see here that underneath we've got plenty of storage for all your almanacs, charts, any important paperwork you want to have close at hand. And that briefcase that you see in here again has got more documentation and history that comes with the yacht. And I'm impressed with the fact that the pilot house does have deck access on both the port and starboard side. And if I make my way out the port side, you'll notice how much space there is in the deck. You've got the solid handrail, you've got the easy boarding access. There's actually a section in the hull that can open out as well. The coach roof for the lower accommodation, it's also a great height in that you can easily sit here in comfort. You could also lay out if you wanted to. And then if I make my way to the bow, you'll see we've got a compartment here that's going to house the windlass. And you don't often see that, but I remember seeing that in some of the boats back in Scotland, and it's actually a really good design because it means there's nothing on the deck can damage the windlass. The windlass is basically sheltered and protected. And this compartment's also got a deck wash in here, and you can also store fenders and rope as well. And as I close the lid, you can also see how thick the fiberglass is. This is a very heavy duty, substantial yacht. And although this yacht is approximately 30 years old, as I pan the camera around, I personally think she's got a timeless classic design. In the short time I was on board, she was still turning heads. And you can also see we've got that hard top on the Flybridge, which we'll get to later on. And this one's got the same setup on both port and starboard. You've got the easy boarding access, and you get the great deck clearance and the handholds throughout. And then on the starboard side, once we make our way back in, this will take you down to the guest accommodation. And on the bow is what would traditionally be a guest cabin. And this has got a V-berth configuration, but this has actually never been used as a guest cabin before. This was actually used as a gym and fitness area. Even on the breaker panel, it refers to things like gym lights and things like that. All the fitness equipment's been removed. But if you were to use this as a traditional guest cabin, you'll see that we've got the full hanging lockers, we've got storage underneath the berths, there's porthole windows as well as the opening hatch overhead. At the front of the cabin you've also got access to the anchor well if you ever needed to inspect or repair the chain. And for being this far forward in the yacht, I was impressed with the headroom because normally it starts to taper off the further you get closer to the bow. You see we've got full height hanging locker space, you can fit your wet weather gear in here. And then if you were to use this as a guest cabin, this one's fully en suite with a separate shower compartment behind the door. And this one's got a freshwater capacity of 185 gallons, and it's got a fuel capacity of 850 gallons. So there's plenty of water on board for everybody to enjoy all the amenities available. And then as we go to head out the cabin and start heading aft, There's a closet in this main passageway that's currently just been used for storage, but this would make a great linen closet since it's right next to the guest cabins. Because if we take a few short steps down and head down through the passageway, this will take you to the VIP stateroom. And here we've got a large island berth. I believe this is a queen size berth. It's easily accessible from either side. There's a ton of storage in this cabin. You could easily spend extended time on board, either for extended cruising or if you wanted to use this as a full-time liveaboard. We've got drawers just as you come in, and there's space up top. I'd personally think that'd be a great area to put a TV. And as mentioned earlier, all the cabinets have got that push button lock mechanism. And if I open up the doors that's in this storage section, this will be on the port side of the hull, you'll notice that there's all sorts of documentation in here. It's always reassuring when you buy a used boat that you get to find out the history that comes with it, what's been serviced, what's been installed, how to operate everything. Far easier for building that confidence before heading out to sea. I like the use of the opening portholes, both for light and ventilation. And then, as you'd expect, this stateroom is fully en suite. But I was impressed to see the setup for the vanity mirror in the head compartment and all the lights and mirrors. It doesn't come across as an afterthought for the guest accommodation, but instead is aimed at making your guests as comfortable as you are. This one's got a separate shower compartment behind the door again, and if you notice there's a good sized shower, so you could easily use this with plenty of space. And then the owner's stateroom is in the aft section of the yacht, and it's also got walk-in engine room access. So if we leave this forward section and start to make our way back up to the pilot house, and then make our way through past the galley and into the saloon, I can take you down into the aft section. And in doing so, you just again get this feeling of just how big the yacht is, in all aspects from the length to the beam to the headroom. It's very easy to make your way down the steps. The passageway is wide enough, the steps aren't too steep or anything like that. At the bottom of the steps we've got controls here whether you want to use shore power or if you want to use a generator. But if we make our way forward, this is basically under the main saloon, and you're going to find the owner's stateroom. This yacht's currently lying in undercover storage, but with the amount of portholes that this cabin has, it even still has a great abundance of natural light coming through. We also have a built-in desk. You could use it as a vanity station, but you could also use it as a work-from-home environment. There's plenty of drawers, lockers and cabinets throughout the entire cabin. The island berth is easily accessible from either side. There's also more storage underneath the bed itself. The mirrors on the bulkhead help make the cabin feel even bigger. And then as an example, you see we've got the hanging locker space, as well as easy access to some of the more mechanical, serviceable components to help make maintenance easier. But if we open up the additional storage that we have here, I was impressed with how deep the storage is. If you were to use this as a full-time liveaboard, or if you wanted to do some extensive cruising, this would be an easy stateroom to live in with the amount of storage options that's available. And again, as you'd expect from a yacht of this size, this stateroom is fully en suite, but I was surprised at just how large the en suite head compartment is. As you make your way in, it's almost as if it's got the his and hers with a separate sink and a separate storage options. You've got the toilet that's separate from the shower, which I always prefer. And plenty of cabinets in here for all your toiletries and personal belongings. As much as this yacht could benefit from a refit and a refurb, I can't help but feel that there's great foundations for doing that with this yacht, not only from the design and layout of the boat, but also from the price point of the boat. This one's 65 foot in length with under $400,000. If you were to order this boat brand new, you'd pay 10 times that price easy. And one of the biggest selling features we've not even touched on yet, and that's the full walk-in engine room access. Because in here we've got a pair of MAN diesel engines. These are approximately 670 horsepower each, but they've got very low hours with full extensive maintenance records. And when I say low engine hours, I'm talking less than 1200 hours on the clock. The Northern Light 16 kilowatt generator, for example, that's on board has got less than 400 hours on the clock. And if you look closely at the engines, there's no obvious signs of any leaks, be it fuel, oil or water. Now, these engines do have a V-drive configuration, And if you want to do any maintenance, I can't think of a better engine room to do it in, because this one has got full standing headroom. I'm 6'2", and I can easily pan the camera around and show you I've still got room above my head walking around in here. That hatch that you see on the transom bulkhead, that opens right onto the bathing platform, but you get natural light and ventilation. A lot of the serviceable components that we have throughout the engine room is all clearly labelled, so you know what you're switching on, switching off, what you're removing, what you're troubleshooting. You get your fuel and oil water separators. This yacht recently made the passage down from the northeast to Florida, and from a mechanical perspective it looks like she's ready to go again and head straight back up to the northeast if you wanted to. And when you are doing any checks, servicing or maintenance down here, you've also got all the gauges for both the engines mounted to the bulkhead, which makes it far easier to understand what's going on. I'm not sure if you can pick it out in the camera, but this one is saying 1133 hours. And that number is the same for both the port and the starboard engines. And this yacht does come with a number of spare parts and components to help make maintenance even easier. And I'm not just talking about your basic oil and filters and things like that. If I climb over and I show you behind the starboard engine, you're going to see that there's a spare prop shaft here. And as I do, taking a look at the bilges, there's no signs of any water or anything like that. Throughout the entire engine room, it's a very clean environment. There's also a lot of the components feel like they're almost excessive, but in a good way. For example, the engine mounts, the soundproofing, the exhaust ventilation, things like that. So when the engines are running, I bet you there's very little heat, smoke and vibration comes off of them for those on board. We've also got an abundance of health and safety equipment down here, from fire extinguishers to different smoke detectors, CO2 detectors. And then when I mentioned there's an abundance of spare parts involved, we also have spare props for both the port and starboard side. Now, while I'm not aware of any mechanical issues with the yacht, it's fair to say at some point in the future these engines are going to require major servicing, perhaps rebuilds or even replacements. And I've never seen a yacht that's got such a setup in place for that. This one's got a crane framework in the engine room where you can hoist different components, including the engine itself, and the framework that slides along on the bulkhead. Remember, the easier it is to maintain a boat, the more chance it has been maintained. And then up on the flybridge is basically a blank canvas. You can keep it this way, and that way you've got plenty of space for people to socialise and mingle with each other, both tied up in the marina or as you're cruising. You can use freestanding furniture. You could install furniture up here. You could use it for installing a deck crane and putting a tender up here. The list of options is pretty much endless. And at the helm we've got the basic engine controls and electronics to allow you to use this for cruising as well as for close quarter manoeuvring. I'd like to thank Mike once again for the opportunity to come on board and check this one out and share the video with you. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. If you can leave a comment down below. If you haven't done so already, if you can hit that like and subscribe button, it really does make a difference. And I look forward to catching you on the next one. Thanks everyone.